So the other day, a bunch of white women got together and broke Zoom. A bunch of white women last Thursday got together, hosted a Zoom call, raised over $8 million for Kamala Harris's campaign, and broke Zoom. Seriously, over 160,000 people tried to tune into this Zoom call. Zoom crashed several times, and people ended up watching it as a live stream on YouTube. Pink was there. And before we feel our feelings on it and write our think pieces or whatever, I personally want to say kudos because that's big. Regardless of how you slice it, this election will largely be decided by white middle class women. And based on the way they voted in earlier elections, remember that 52, 53%? Yeah, this is a good thing. But beyond that, let this be your proof that y'all do know how to organize, that you can get things done, that you do know how to fundraise for a cause you believe in. And with that in mind, apply the same energy to the issues that directly impact you and your communities. Because fundraising for a politician is great. That's fine. That's cool. That's what you want to do. But being able to do that same thing for the communities and causes that you're a part of, that's big. That's change making. If you just had a baby or are planning on having a baby soon, know that the baby blues can and will sneak up on you, so just be prepared for that. Even if your support system is awesome, even if everything in your life is amazing, they can and they will. And that's okay, just be prepared. Your body just went through something absolutely insane, like cuckoo nuts bananas. Your hormones are shifting, and that's a really big thing. And your life is shifting too, whether you're a first-time parent or a fourth-time parent. It's a lot. And all that coupled with just like general exhaustion of having a newborn might have you feeling a little blue, and that's okay. And this is different from PPD, which is longer lasting, a little more intense, won't go away on its own, things like that. And while we talk about PPD more often because it can be longer lasting and more dangerous, it doesn't mean that the baby blues are okay just because they're common. That being said, it might not feel like it now, but you're going to be okay. There are people who love and care about you. Now is a great time to lean on your support network, even if that's telling that support network to kind of bug off a little bit. It doesn't mean you're ungrateful. You need to do the things that are best for you and your baby. So you don't have to just cope with the baby blues because they're common. Anyways, just be on the lookout because the baby blues can and will sneak up on you. Even if everything feels like it's great, it doesn't mean you love your baby any less, and you do not have to cope alone just because they're common. There are people who love you, who want to support you, and you're going to be all right. I promise. I gave birth a little more than 2 weeks ago, and this is how it went, but watch to the end. I went to bed at 3 o'clock in the morning on Tuesday the 16th. I didn't know why I couldn't sleep. Turns out my body was getting ready to rumble because I went into labor at like 4:30. Started having contractions. They were every 20 minutes. I tried to sleep. I was unsuccessful, but I tried up until about 5:30 when my bloody show showed up. And I was like, oh, okay, we're having a baby today. I told my mom, timed my contractions, called my OBGYN when they opened at 8 o'clock. By 9:45, I was getting a cervical exam. Side note, hate those things, felt like a sock puppet. Anyway, got my cervical done, found out I was 1 centimeter dilated. I was crushed. My doctor said it was normal. She said, go home, tough it out, and if anything big happens, go to the hospital. So I go home, take a nap, tough it out, eat a delicious cinnamon roll, and wait. At around 7 o'clock-ish, my contractions are like 5 minutes apart for like a minute each. So I can tell it's about that time. Keep in mind, at that point, I've been contracting for about 15-ish hours. But at 7:30, my water breaks. But it doesn't just break. It pops. It snaps. It shatters. It's go time. I rally up my mom. I rally up the troops. We skirt on over to the hospital. They wheel me inside and get me all checked in. Check-in literally takes forever. I had to get my IV put in. The guy doing it blew a vein. He had to put it in my right hand. Devastating news. Anyway, I don't get situated until it's about midnight. I get situated in my room. I get another cervical. I find out that I am almost entirely effaced, but I'm only 1.5 centimeters dilated. At this point, I've been in labor for about 20 hours and my water's been broken for about 5, and I am getting cold. But not like regular cold. I'm getting cold. My nurse is bringing in heated blankets. The room is set on like 80 degrees and I cannot figure it out. Eventually, the doctor was like, we have got to give you Pitocin. We have got to move this thing along. You could get really sick. We have got to speed it along. I'm devastated. I didn't want Pitocin because I knew if I had to take Pitocin, I'd want the epidural. So I ended up getting the epidural that I didn't want to get, but you do what you got to do. They give me the Pitocin, the epidural, and something to help me sleep. I go to sleep. I wake up at 8 o'clock the next morning, still in labor. Thankfully, things are finally moving along, but the doctors were right to be concerned. I got an infection along the way. My temperature is rising, and now the concern is, will I have the baby in time before I get too hot? Thankfully, the answer was yes, and after 33 hours of labor, my daughter was finally born and perfectly healthy. But They had to keep us both under observation for 2 days to make sure that I got over the infection and that the antibiotics were working and make sure that she didn't get sick. Birth is hands down the scariest thing to ever happen to me, and I had an amazing team in my corner because I have awesome access to antenatal care. But if I didn't have that privilege, I could be sitting here telling you a very different story. And when I think about the Black maternal mortality rate, there's a chance I could not be telling you the story at all. We need people in positions of power who care about this, who take these lives seriously and take this issue seriously. So when y'all talk about not voting or writing in or whatever, do what you got to do according to your morals, but also remember these are the lives you're forsaking. Because what happened to me is not an anomaly, but the medical care I received is. Everybody talks about how great easy babies are, but I want to give a shout out to personality babies, because I have one, and y'all make the day fun. For starters, my girl cannot be contained. She fights her way out of clothes, diapers, swaddles, a hug if it's too tight. She cannot be contained. But conversely, she hates to be naked. So we go to the doctor and they take her clothes off to weigh her. She is screaming holy terror. But more pressingly, my girl is hungry. Ravenous. She was cluster feeding by day 3. At this point, she eats every hour and a half and won't miss a meal. The other day, she slept through a meal. I woke her up and she grabbed my tata in her hand with both hands and squeezed me like a burger and bit me. Bit me. In fact, she has little indentations where her teeth are going to be. You can see them. You can feel them. And the running joke in the family is that she'll be cutting them pretty soon. She's incredibly communicative. Like, I almost always know why she's crying. Like, if she's clawing my skin off, she's uncomfortable. And there's like an 80% chance she needs a diaper change. And then she just calms right down. But when she gets mad, she gets heated. Like, she turns red. Her hair starts to curl up like little devil horns. And she looks like a gremlin that somebody got wet or like fed after midnight. Her favorite song is Blackbird by Beyonce because it's the only song guaranteed to calm her down. And her second night in the hospital, we listened to it no less than 100 times. And I'm not kidding because the song is only 2 minutes long. She's alert, she's engaged, she's expressive, and she screeches like a car that desperately needs oil. The longest chunk I've slept in the last 11 days is 2 hours. I don't have an easy baby, but I have a personality baby, and I could not be more grateful. Praying that the nation and the political infrastructure and the government falls apart is not a viable solution to our problem, and y'all will not be leading this revolution or this riot that you want so bad because you do not have the attention span and the focus. And what you're rooting for is just going to get a lot of people that aren't you hurt. In the last 10-ish months, as more and more people, mostly white leftists and white liberals, have realized just how awful the world is and the big role that the United States plays in making the world so awful, I've been seeing a lot of comments that are like, oh, I hope it all burns down. I hope it all falls apart. We need a riot, blah, blah, blah. And I'm going to tell y'all right now, you don't know what you're asking for. You're not ready for what you're asking for. And you're not actually going to participate in what you're asking for. And I know this because we're watching it play out in this most current election cycle again. The crisis in Palestine and Sudan and Congo are not new. New to many of us, but not new. The cost of living is the worst it has been, but it has been getting worse for years now. The cost of healthcare becomes more and more inaccessible every day. Education is still under attack, and our reproductive freedoms continue to just flit away, as they have been for years. All these things have been the same, and yet we haven't organized to do anything about it at all. Now it's time for the election, and everybody wants to talk about how they're going to vote according to their morals or whatever, which, yes, as you should, do you, but nobody wants to put all that preaching into practice. Because realistically, we had 4 years to rally behind like a third-party candidate, and we just didn't, because we never do. We had 4 years to suggest legislation or hold town halls or harass the members of Congress or even the people in power in our own states, and we largely didn't. Now y'all are calling for a revolution or worse, a riot, but y'all don't want to do the work for that. Y'all just want somebody else to do it, somebody else to make that sacrifice, and then you reap the benefits. Nah, baby, y'all aren't ready for what you're calling for. So that's cool. Continue to do you. I'm not going to judge you, but call for something else. The thing that gets me the most about the baby blues is how incredibly unique they are to each person. I think a lot of us can relate to like the overwhelming sadness or the general like disorientation that comes with like new motherhood, but where that stems from and what those feelings really carry for each person looks different. My friend sent me a video yesterday from a lovely creator, and I will tag her down below, about her experience with the baby blues and how she's like mourning this version of herself from before when she was a mother. And relatable, but that's not me. I'm struggling with a lot of the things I think I struggled with during pregnancy, but like amplified by 10 now. I worry that I'm not good enough for her, that I've condemned my beautiful, amazing baby to a life full of suffering, that I don't deserve the angel that I have. And at the same time, I am immensely jealous of people who touch her and love her and interact with her because she's mine, except she's not mine. She's not property. And I think I'm just responding to some of the loneliness that I felt when I was pregnant. And then I feel incredibly guilty for feeling so jealous because I want people to know her and I want people to love her. And they do. I'm horrified that I won't be able to give her a good life and that somebody who isn't me can take better care of her. And then in the next breath, I am petrified that someone's going to take her from me and I don't know who that person would be. And all of this rolls around day in and day out, in addition to general baby stuff and general adaptations. Until sometimes I'm just left feeling a little blue, to put it lightly. I'm sure that experience is unique to me and also not unique at all. And I think that's one of like the most disorienting things about the baby blues is that they're relatable and yet so niche all at the same time. So if you're struggling with the baby blues, know that you're not alone and also that your experiences are unique and individualistic and both are okay and that you're going to be okay. Yeah, it's a journey. It's a journey. So Cardi B just announced that she's pregnant with her third kid and that she's divorcing Offset, kind of like all in the same breath. And before y'all start with this whole boo, single moms, care about the household, stop having his kids thing that y'all love to do so much, I want to remind y'all that women are independent, autonomous beings that can make choices for their own bodies, their lives, their families, their relationships, their kids, all of it. And it's not just Cardi B. Y'all do some variation of this song and dance every time a woman announces that she's pregnant, whether she's in a relationship or not. And this is especially true if she's powerful or if she's quote unquote bad. Like today, I found out that supermodel Adota Cash is also pregnant. And besides the general question of why is everybody pregnant lately, which I guess is a fair ask, the comments were awful. They were like, oh, this is so sad. Who did this to her? Another baddie's getting taken out of the game and no one's talking about it. And I know some of it's a tee hee ha ha, but like, these are grown folk making grown folk decisions with their grown folk bodies. Like, y'all love to forget that women can make choices with their bodies that you might not necessarily make. And that choice can include having kids and being happy about it. Like, kids are not some plague amongst man or some scourge upon the earth that we got to get rid of. Kids are people, and some women want these people to be a part of their futures, and that's okay, and also not really too much of y'all's business. And that woman is still herself, even if she has a baby. She is no less beautiful, no less powerful, no less successful because she's a mom now. All of these things are true, and none of these things are dependent on if there's a man there or not. And y'all just need to remember that sometimes. Anyway, many blessings to Cardi B. I hope whatever this next chapter in her life brings, she gets to be happy because that's the most important thing. Every, say, 4 to 6 months, y'all get on this app or any of the other horrible apps out there and debate on if it's okay to lay hands on your children to beat them as a form of discipline. Y'all don't lay your hands on anybody else when they do things that you don't like because that is a charge. That is a crime. But when it's a kid, for some reason, y'all are like, oh, but it's discipline. I'll justify hurting children, someone smaller than you, who knows less than you, who is less developed than you, as a form of discipline, and then you wonder how they are marginalized. We justify hitting them because they are smaller than us, and know less than us, and are less developed than us. Otherwise, again, a crime. The other day, I was arguing with y'all on whether or not children belonged in grocery stores because y'all, for some reason, think you're entitled to a child-free universe in which the planes, and the trains, and the cars, and the buses, and the stores, and the sidewalks are all free of children because you don't like them. And sure, you can blame the parents if you want to, but at the end of the day, you are segregating against these kids because they're annoying. Babe, you're annoying. But if I started making places where you weren't allowed to go, you'd feel some type of way. But you think it's okay because they're kids. Children make up almost half of our national population, and yet we don't want to hear their thoughts and opinions on anything, even though they live in the same world we live in. We treat them as if they are stupid and are incredibly ageist because they are young, and you want to ask me how they are marginalized? Children are more likely to experience almost all forms of abuse because they do not know how to stand up for themselves, and oftentimes can't stand up for themselves because they are not given a voice in this country. And besides all that, y'all get on here, call kids 8,000 different types of names and talk about how you want to kick them into the sun, and you want to ask how they're marginalized. You talk about anybody else like that, you're a bigot. So you can say that kids are annoying and that's why you don't like them, they make too much noise, the parents don't parent, whatever it is. At the end of the day, you're justifying marginalizing kids. So do with that what you will. Yes, there is a difference between the baby blues and PPD or postpartum depression. I'm so glad you asked. They're like cousins. They have the same familial roots. They look kind of the same, but they're not when push comes to shove. So, for starters, the baby blues are dang near inevitable. Something like 80% of birthing parents end up with the baby blues. They usually start shortly after the baby's born by a couple of days, last a week or two, and it's like the emotional highs and lows of being a new parent. It's feeling sad, it's feeling weepy, it's feeling anxious or irritable, largely brought on by the huge drop in hormones and the big life changes and the fact that you're not sleeping. But while you might be moody and sad and irritable, you also still get to feel those highs. You still get to feel joy. You might feel proud of yourself as a new parent. And as previously mentioned, they're pretty short lived, just a couple of weeks. If you've got a good support team, the baby blues might not be that bad. PPD is like that, but worse and way longer. It's like depression because it is depression. Only like 10% of birthing parents have PPD, although that number is likely a little higher because nobody wants to talk about it, so it's underreported. However, it's marked by severe lows, like hopelessness, you're not bonding with your baby, you don't want to be around your baby, you feel worthless, like you're not a good parent, you feel guilt. I mean, it's intense. You're not eating, you're losing weight, you're not resting outside of the fact that the baby's keeping you up, like you have insomnia. In extreme cases, you have thoughts about hurting yourself or the baby. All that is PPD. And it can last for a while, but the general rule of thumb is baby blues go away after a week or two. If you're still feeling super sad after a week or two, like no hope, no joy, call somebody. Please don't wait till your 6-week appointment or whatever. Call somebody. So yeah, same root, big life changes, exhaustion, hormone drop, but different execution. Hope this helps. So my baby girl had her first tummy ache today, and she has been struggling. She was screaming and crying. She wasn't nursing like she usually does. She looked like the saddest girl in the world. It was awful. As I was desperately trying to help my girl out, it occurred to me that this is the worst day of her life so far. And it crushed me. Like, she's never known this type of pain. She's never known this type of discomfort. At one point, she was super hungry but couldn't really nurse. She was super tired but couldn't really sleep, but she was uncomfortable. And her tummy hurt all at once. Like, she was just miserable. And these were all just experiences that she's never really had before. And I couldn't imagine just like how terrifying and unsettling that must be for her. It won't be the only time she will have other tummy aches, and for a while she will respond just like she responded today. And eventually she'll learn, this is what this feels like. This is why I get these things. This is what I can do about it. But for now, it's like the end of the world. And I think about the importance of having so much grace and empathy, not just for her, but for like kids in general, because they're always going through something like this. Like years from now when she's 2 and she's crying because I won't let her drink out of like a red cup or something, it might not just be the red cup. It might be that I'm telling her no and she has a tummy ache and she's incredibly tired and can't articulate all of those things and is feeling them all at once for the first time. And it just really gave me like good perspective. Like while she was screaming and crying and I couldn't settle her and I was so tired, I also had to think about the fact that for her, this is it. This is the worst day of her life. And as she grows up, giving her grace for the things that might seem very small to me at my big grown age, but for her is still every single time the worst day of her life.
I privated my last video about Sonya Massey because there's talk of an AI video going around, and though I did watch the one from the news, I don't even want to risk the chance of being irresponsible with this, so I'm better safe than sorry. And I'm also beginning to be uncomfortable with the fixation on the pot in general. I feel like, at least for a portion of us, the pot is being centered because we're trying to get ahead of any opportunity that somebody can take to justify this murder. We know that being perfect victims is the closest we'll ever get to empathy. But what's getting lost is that there is no justifiable reason that Sonya Massey should have been murdered. Anybody who justifies it just wants to, just like that pig killed her because he wanted to. And the part of the video that I can't stop thinking about, I honestly wish I had never watched it, is the shock on her face when he escalated to threatening her. She tried so hard to make it out of that interaction alive. Which is why I stand by the main sentiment of the other video. If you have made yourself comfortable justifying state violence, even for victims that you don't perceive as perfect, then you are possibly preparing a defense for your own murder as well. When you can be shot during a traffic stop, a wellness check, a mental health crisis, while sleeping in bed, while being a child playing in a park, while calling for help, there is no such thing as simply complying. So again, if it was Sonya Massey, then why not any of us? I didn't see her throw a motherfucking thing, but even then, any other scenario, if there is somebody in your home threatening you with a weapon for no reason, you have a right to respond with equally fatal force. That someone would also have the option to retreat if they feel threatened. He was in her fucking house. If you fatally harm a cop, that's a capital charge. Easy, baby. Your life is over. And if they are placed on such a pedestal that they cannot be treated like an average citizen, then as somebody who swore to protect and serve, when they kill unjustly, then their punishment should be harsher than the average citizen. With power comes responsibility. Please allow me to circle back to this, because I ain't forgot how Republicans spent days pinning the attempted assassination on Democrats and leftists, blatantly trying to incite violence against us. They said that we were responsible for spreading rhetoric about Trump that caused somebody to want to take aim at him. The rhetoric in question is us telling the truth about his continuous assaults on democracy, as well as his tyrannical, bigoted ass platform. Facts that were once acknowledged by the man he has now chosen as his running mate, JD flip-flopping ass Vance. He has been recorded calling Trump America's Hitler. Marjorie Taylor Greene, with her violent ghetto ass, tweeted about how we're all predators and how we are responsible for almost murdering the actual predator. Why is a sitting politician allowed to do that? All of this only for it to be proven that the shooter belongs to the very group that Trump panders to, radicalized, rifle-toting white men. There are even things that point to him being a Republican. After the incident, Democrats immediately started posting phony-ass bullshit messages calling for unity and denouncing political violence. Not one Republican came back to walk back the statements they made about the left, though. But why would they? These are the same people who have been threatening us with a one-sided civil war if Trump loses, which really means that they plan to brutalize marginalized people and their political opponents. And now the same demographic that will call you a sheep for wearing a mask during a pandemic is now walking around with maxi pads on their ears for an imaginary injury. We are in a simulation. Now, since we're all against political violence, can we spare a moment to talk about 200,000 Palestinians that have been murdered? Or what about the fact that the same rifle that was used in the attempted assassination was used to kill children at Uvalde? No gun control, though. Sounds like political violence to me. Last month, June 24th, marked the 2-year anniversary of Roe v. Wade being overturned. And I just want to highlight how the Dobbs decision has impacted healthcare and the lives of American citizens. Since the ruling, 21 states have banned abortion, stripping access from tens of millions of people. Residents of these states are forced to either remain pregnant or to travel states away if they even have the resources to. Physicians and healthcare providers are being faced with the threat of legal consequences, placing barriers between them and treating patients. A woman named Brittany Watts was subjected to a criminal investigation after miscarrying a non-viable pregnancy. States with total abortion bans like Texas have denied women abortions even in cases of medical necessity. Maternal mortality rates continue to rise disproportionately for Black women. Attacks on sexual education have soared since Dobbs. There has been a record-breaking 135 bills introduced to restrict it. And I know that this may seem redundant because I spend a lot of time talking about post-Roe society, but I can't overstate how much we've lost in the last 2 years and all that we stand to lose going forward.
Y'all better stay away from me because I'm hearing stupid is contagious, right? I wanted to go to sleep at 4 o'clock in the morning last night because I was up reading my book. And then I wanted to wake up at 11 o'clock acting super damn confused when I couldn't wake up when my alarm went off at 9 o'clock. I wonder why. Are you dumb? To figure out a way to make the ambiance of reading at night exist during the day so that I don't feel like pushing it off until the wee hours of the morning when I literally should be sleeping. I'm a very strong believer in the fact that people need to be able to take criticism on their favorite books, okay? Freedom of speech and whatnot. Don't get too butthurt. But I do also think it is such weird behavior. Weirdo. To go out of your way to make people feel stupid for enjoying something that you did not enjoy. I need you to take a step back and reflect on why this is an enjoyable activity for you or something that you feel is necessary to do when an alternative, an honestly very viable alternative, is keeping that trap shut. You get what I'm saying? Don't get me wrong, I'm so excited that the People We Meet on Vacation book to film adaptation is happening, but one thing that I think is really inconsiderate is the fact that you would tell me that when I know I'm not going to be able to see that film for so long. And not only are you telling me that it's happening, and like it's actually happening, you're going to announce to me that my man Tom Blythe is playing Alex Nilsson. From the moment I rise in the morning to the moment my head hits the pillow every single night, this is going to be what I'm thinking about. On God, it's going to be what I'm thinking about. Like,
as soon as Cordell started referring to Dea as old girl, but saying Serena's name, I knew that he liked Serena more. And I was confused why all the guys were being idiots, giving him really bad advice. Kendall saying, oh, would you want your wife to act like that? Cordell is like in his head, he's like, yeah, I would. Like, he didn't say no. All the boys are like trying to convince him back onto Dea. And you can see in Cordell's eyes and demeanor and the way he's talking about both of them, saying Serena and old girl. And then he's walking towards Serena, yelling at him, and the boys are still like, you have a good girl over there, bro. When Kendall said, would you want your wife to act like that, I kind of lost some respect for him, because I'm like, dude, have you ever dealt with like a real woman, particularly a black woman who like knows how to speak your mind? Because right now you're giving, no, you haven't. Just specifically because it was against Serena, who he allegedly cares about so much, but you're making all these nasty snide comments to Cordell, and everybody's like trying to convince him onto Dea, and he clearly wants Serena. Why do you think he's walking to? People don't fight unless they're like kind of in love. You know what I mean? That was a love fight. That was a real fight. I've been in that fight. But when you're in that kind of fight, they were really, they had chemistry. Do you know what I mean? Like, you're watching them and you're like, wow, these people really like care about each other. And he kept going towards her as she was yelling and fighting him, because he obviously wants her. And then in the confessional, he's like, I want Serena. And to Serena, he says, I want Serena. But then he's going back to Dea and trying to act. That's the thing, is he needs to cut it off with Dea like quickly. But I think because she made herself so like directly towards him, and now the OBJ comment, I don't think he has the respect for her to feel like he needs to cut it off with Dea immediately. And especially like the OBJ comment, I think by that point, when he heard that at the game, he had already made a decision that he wasn't even going to go for Dea anyways, and was going to go for Serena. And I think he's like scared to make that confrontation, but he already knows in his head, so he didn't even like really care that much, because he was like, well, I'm not going for her anyway. And Dea starts crying, but she doesn't even know he's already signed off. He's just not telling you yet. And now, because he feels like you may have disrespected him, he has even more impetus to like mug you off, as they say. So yeah, but I did not like the boys, like Miguel and Kendall in particular, trying to sway him the opposite way when he was clearly portraying signs of leaning towards Serena. That's weird to me. That was weird to me. I just started laughing because I remembered on movie night when they were talking about how many times a guy like jacks off in a month, and Kayla was like, we have to think about our dads. And everyone was like, no, the fuck we don't. The girls let the other girls get away with their moments like that. Like, even when Nicole, they said idol something, and Nicole was like, what's idol? And Serena was like, we about to find out. They give them so much grace for their moments. We have to think about our dads. And you know what? She definitely gives that. She definitely gives, like, we're talking about something sexual, you guys. We have to think about our dads. Like, Kayla, why was that your first thought? And she was so loud about it. She's like, you guys, I know how we can think about this. Think about your dad doing that. How many times would he do it? Why do you know that? Now, I'm dadless, so who am I to talk? Maybe that's like a natural, like, daddy-daughter point of a talking point, something. I don't know, Kayla. Kayla and I are different bitches, but I don't think about my dad at all. Particularly not doing that. But I digress.
What Eli Pope do is in her Bonrad math era, and I am shocked at the way she's roping some of you in. And this is going to be a presentation called A Tale of Two Gutter Butt Scenes from a Gutter Butt Book, and why they're different. I think we can all agree that We'll Always Have Summer is what would be referred to as a gutter butt book, and you can go back. I've been saying that forever, the entire plot, everything about it. But what brought on this back and forth was I expressed some fondness for a certain scene, Jeremiah proposing to Belly, and I expressed some fondness. To be clear, as you all know, I have never been a fan of the engagement storyline at all. This is not what I would have written for my beloved Jelly. I would never have done this. This is certainly not how I would have written a proposal. I thought the storyline fit. I always found it to be very off tone to the rest of the books, and I thought it was weird. However, I think that since it exists, I can say that at least this scene had sweet dialogue and Jeremiah had convictions and he was showing that he was serious. This whole paragraph here, Belly's sentiments, is honestly some of Jennifer's most beautiful writing, and it is so sweet and romantic that this dorm room proposal, the whole tracing the face, I didn't want to see a mark on his face one day and not know how it got there. I wanted to be with him. His was the face I loved, and the joy I felt in that moment, I couldn't even put it into words. Very sweet in a people throw rocks at things that shine, like cute, okay? That's all I'm saying. It makes me emotional. But then she really went on about how, oh, it was in the dorm room and the popcorn ceiling and the Walmart ring, and that's fine. I'm not going to disagree. Again, this was not a dream proposal that I would have written. However, in his defense, all we know about this ring is that it's small. It's a small diamond. And the reason that he has the tiny little ring and it's the this would just be for stars until I could afford to pay for a ring with my money, not my dad's, is because she had previously been on him about, you know, people in his fraternity and how they just spend their parents' money. Now, my opinion, and I think my opinion is correct, I think both of the boys should be spending Adam's money just like their mother before them, and I don't see any reason why they shouldn't be. But Jeremiah, unlike some people, and I know everybody hates Tummy right now, and like he shouldn't have even been doing all this for her, but this does show that he listens to what Tummy says, and he wants to impress her, he wants to make her happy, and he wants to show that he's serious about her. Again, not what I would have written. Now, the whole gutter butt popcorn ceiling dorm room Walmart ring argument would have been so fair, and I would have so understood that if she didn't turn around and defend, may I say, romanticize the worst and most low effort gutter butt Valentine's Day in the history of YA romance. So in the very same book, we learned that while Belly and Conrad were in their situationship, he unsurprisingly ignored her all day on Valentine's Day, and then later that night, on a cold night, he texted her and said, "Look out your window," completely unannounced, and there he is with a plaid blanket, a thermos of lukewarm cocoa, and a box of Twinkies. Other than that, he was empty-handed, no gift. Mind you, he apparently had a Tiffany necklace, the infinity necklace, in his possession at this point, but he couldn't give it to her then either. No declaration, no I love you, nothing, no will you be my girlfriend, no meal, just look up at the sky. He told her to look up at the sky, and that was the date, and they stayed outside. All he said was, sometimes I think I'll never trust another girl the way I trust you. Again, that's about what she does for him. And what would Eli Pope do defended this by saying that Belly didn't care about how bare minimum it was of her rich situationship to show up like this, and she didn't care about it. And you know, that's true, because like he could have actually spit in Belly's eye and she would have clapped for him. That actually makes it worse in my opinion, because this is the issue that I have with this scene. He likes it because he actually acknowledged her, and even though she already knows the constellations that he's telling her about, she doesn't have the heart to tell him, and she just loves listening to him talk with the wonder in his voice. Again, nothing about anything that he does for her. The other defense was that it only needed 3 minor tweaks, and the tweaks were that he should have acknowledged that it was Valentine's Day and not ignored her all day, that the cocoa should have at least been warm, and that he should have had a gift. So basically the whole thing. So basically the tweak would have had to be that he would have had to put in effort, but he didn't. And I saw some of you saying that this was out of character for Conrad, like it was not bad, it was one of his best moments, and I think this is largely regarded as like one of Conrad's best scene, maybe his most iconic. And that to me is why I hate this scene so much and think it is just so gutter butt, as you would say, because this is supposed to be his like best scene. It's so iconic to them that the sound is viral and they put it all over the merch, and Belly romanticized it so much. She said, so no, he didn't give me flowers or candy, he gave me the moon and the stars, infinity. His shining moment was below bare minimum, meaning he actually didn't even give you that rusted necklace that he had in his possession. Your rich situationship showed up empty-handed on Valentine's Day, treated you like an afterthought. And because this is the same girl who was so excited that Conrad, and I quote, cared mattered if she lived or died. She ate it up. And so did some of you apparently. And that would be fine, except this is Lover Girl, but the proposal was gutter butt. Now, wouldn't you say that the proposal was like one of Jeremiah's worst moments? However, Jeremiah actually had good dialogue, convictions, like declarations of love showed that he cared and paid attention, even though it might have been popcorn stealing, gutter butt, and all that. In conclusion, while the setup of the proposal might have been gutter butt, there was actual intentions, declarations, and love there. Whereas Valentine's Day was just Conrad being low effort for the sake of being low effort because he knows he can get away with it, and Belly romanticizing it because that's what Belly does, keeping those standards low for his fangirl just because he can. And I know that you have made a comment saying that they were in high school, so you wouldn't have expected anything extravagant. Me personally, I would have expected a little something more from an Ivy League boy with a trust fund driving a Range Rover, but
Nicole, was it your hole we saw or Kendall's? Because the way you just then co-opted this entire reunion and made it about you as if you was the one spread eagle is really ridiculous. You are literally not the victim here. I'm so sorry. You talking about something, what about me? What about the hate I got? And what hate did you get? Like, I'm not saying you didn't get none, but that's not what I saw. Nobody hating on you. Like, how did you even make that about you? Like, duh, he lied to you. Duh. That man got his phone back and seen himself bent over backwards, spreading and popping that thing open and closed. And you mean to tell me you thought he was going to look you in the eye and tell you exactly where that came from, the timestamp, who he sent it to, and the details of why he did what he did? No, bitch, I would lie to you too, especially if you act like this. When Kendall got that phone back, bitch, I know his heart dropped so goddamn fast. You hear me? Because he was the victim here, not you. Keep it a stack, sister. Keep it a stack. You saw that video and cringed. You got the ick. But you feel bad for saying you got the ick because he was exposed without his consent. And you would be looking like a bitch if you was to just leave him based off of what he did. So you are trying to co-opt this situation and make it seem like you really mad because he lied to you. Bitch, you know why he lied. Please. I'm sorry. Come on. But sometimes you got to just be honest. Be like, listen. I'm not gonna lie, when I seen him tooted up with a better arch than me, I wasn't prepared for that. And I'm working through that. Be patient with me. And everybody would have been like, understandable.
Love Island reunion thoughts. Cordell and Serena were never supposed to win Love Island. Hear me out. I feel like watching the reunion showed me that they don't really care that much about Serena and Cordell's journey, especially to becoming the winners. And it's because they were never supposed to win in the first place. Like, I've been a Love Island fan since basically the first season in the UK. And I feel like there's a certain type of couple that wins Love Island. There's a certain type of way they look. And there's a certain type of way they act too. And I feel like because Aaron and Kayla did not play their role, they were supposed to play the role of the cute, kind of young, slightly naive puppy love couple. That was supposed to be them. They were coupled up from the start. Like, it was so easy. Like, it could have, that narrative journey would have been so easy for the producers to kind of manipulate and edit into us understanding that as they wanted us to understand it. But Cordell and Serena didn't play their role as the stand in the background, look cute, have bad communication, friend zone him. That kind of dynamic was supposed to play out with them, which would have made it a lot easier for us to maybe dislike them or maybe just think that they're not as compatible as they are. And it would have made it easier for us to think that Aaron and Kayla are a lot more compatible than they are. But also, the producers didn't take into account the fact that, like, as a society, we've really grown and there is a lot more awareness now when it comes to just mental health and behaviors and toxic negative behaviors that can bring themselves up in relationships. And we know what gaslighting is now. We know what emotional abuse is now. We know what manipulation is now. We know what emotional blackmail is now. And so when Aaron was displaying all of those behaviors, we were just like, we're not having it. People were not having it. I mean, I couldn't vote, but you lot did a really good job by making sure that the correct people won.
I am fully convinced that people just hate the existence of women. This man made this funny video saying when a girl is falling off a cliff, but that girl isn't your gorgeous girlfriend, he's acting like he's gonna go help her, and then he gives her the middle finger. I thought it was so funny, and then I looked at the comments, and the comments are joking with him right back. You looked at her, red flag, why did you even notice? Too much eye contact. Like, it's a funny ass video. I actually really like this video. And then a few days later, I see a woman do the same exact video, same concept. She said when a man is falling off a building, but that man isn't your handsome boyfriend, she's acting like she's gonna go help him, and then she gives him the middle finger. And I looked at the comments because I'm like, oh shit, this is so funny. She did the same trend. And the first comment I see is, I love the fact that nature gave women a painful period every month. They completely deserve it. Your handsome boyfriend is with someone else? Okay, but what if that man had a girlfriend to come home to or something? That's what I'd be thinking of. The men are gonna love this one as posed. I would help him, even if he's not my boyfriend, because we have to save people. Chris, nobody was being dead ass. This is an obvious joke. This is the most obvious joke I've ever fucking seen in my life. And the fact that people are taking her so literal, but they didn't do that to the guy is crazy. Unfortunately, at this point, I think it's just part of life for women to receive hate no matter what the fuck we do.
Right now, there's been a lot of white influencers who are getting exposed for their racist pasts, and I have a different think piece that I want to share with you all, but specifically these women getting exposed, since I feel like it's a bit of a different perspective than other people have been sharing. My name is Alexis. I went to a high school with predominantly white people. Some of these people have actually gained their own platforms on apps like this since high school. So I wanted to share my story specifically because I'm a good representation of the kind of lives you guys destroy with your racism. Growing up, my sisters and I faced horrible racism from people that would now say that they are anti-racist, that they are vehemently against racism, but that doesn't change our childhood. We've experienced things like getting photos drawn of us by our classmates with them pointing weapons against our heads. We'd have football games where the students would make the theme whiteout and write posts like wear your natural skin color, or when our games were in predominantly black areas, they would make the theme riot shields and police gear. One time I had to sit in an auditorium of my class chanting Bob Ewell, the name Bob Ewell, which is the character in To Kill a Mockingbird that lynches the black character, and that was the book that we were reading in school at the time. I'm still clearly very traumatized by this. I've had people call me names and draw parallels to me and the black victims of unarmed shootings by the police at the time. One time I walked into lunch a little bit late. Right where I sat my lunch table, there was a swastika drawn on my seat, and this happened every day for a week. And it's I was terrified to go to school almost every day. This was also during a period of time where there was a lot of mass shootings going on in America. And I can't even describe to you the terror and anxiety. Every day I was having a mental breakdown and having to go to the nurse's office. Every day I had to go to the principal's office and report a new thing for them not to do anything. I even had to go all the way to going to the police because people were calling me slurs and threatening my life. And no one ever did anything because racism is not taken seriously. By white people especially. Racism is just not taken seriously at all. I'm very grateful that nothing happened to me, that everything was all just talk or just to terrorize black people, I guess. But what people don't talk about and realize is how that will affect you emotionally as a person. I think what happened to me as a young child has impacted my life so deeply, so emotionally. I feel so emotionally terrorized. You can see it, hear it in my voice, and I will never be the same. It has affected every relationship I've ever had, the relationship that I have with myself, the way that I see myself, and the way that I think other people see me. It's truly, I wouldn't wish this on my worst enemy. It's something that I'm gonna live with forever, and it's so heavy, so heavy. And I think just the message that I want to say about situations like these of just white people being racist in their childhood as a phase, you affect real people, and you being racist puts such a trauma onto the people of color in your life that they're going to have to deal with every single day until they die. What that means is if you have to apologize or feel guilty or feel like shit every single day for the rest of your life for this racism that you grew out of, that is what you deserve. If you're a white person and you're looking into my eyes right now, hopefully you can see the pain of what your racism in childhood, how that impacts real life Black people, because it's like racism is not just a concept, it's a thing that you are employing onto a real person. I hope that you feel guilty for the rest of your life, because I feel traumatized and emotionally vulnerable for the rest of my life, and I didn't deserve that. So much of the conversation has shifted into these white people, oh, they've grown, they've changed, they see the importance of Black Lives Matter, they went out and protested, they donate money, they've educated themselves, and that's great and that's so important, and I hope that this message doesn't detract from the fact that we should be doing that. We should all be learning more to educate and rewire our brains out of, these racist thinking and tendencies that we have. But along with that message, I hope you know that if you feel guilty forever, if people out here are making you feel guilty about these things that you've said for the rest of your life, that is justified. Because we are going to feel this way because of your racism that you have now grown out of. We were the collateral damage of that, and we are going to feel this way forever. I'm very glad that you've changed and you've learned and you feel like you are a newer, better person now. But whenever you get frustrated or upset for people bringing up things that you've done in the past that were racist, that were unkind, and you're like, oh, why can't people just let this go? Like, I've addressed this once. Can we shut it down? No, we should be able to address it forever. And you're just going to have to live with that. You have to live with the fact that your racism impacts other people for the rest of your life. It's not something that should even be done begrudgingly. Like, you should do that with as much ease as you were to be racist when you were younger. That's the least that you can do to be accountable for your actions and the way that you hurt other people. Because the frustration that you maybe feel from people bringing up the unsavory parts of your past, the parts that you feel like you've grown out of, it's nowhere near the frustration that I feel for having to go through that due to people like you. Thank you for hearing me out. I hope you feel bad about what you did forever.
No more TikToks about Blake Lively. I can't listen to it anymore. I can't have another clip of her in an interview and everyone being like, they could never make me like you, Blake Lively. It's like, I don't think you guys liked her before this, so I don't think she's losing much. I really don't like anyone involved within this movie. I think they all seem like very shady, morally skewed individuals. Everyone, from the author of the book all the way to the director of the film, I think they all have some shady allegations around them, and I really don't give a fuck if they don't like each other. I just don't want to see it on my timeline anymore. I don't want to see Blake Lively being sarcastic in an interview again and everybody acting like they expected Blake Lively to be a nice person. I'm sorry, did we expect that? Did we expect Blake Lively to be a really amazing person? She's married to Ryan Reynolds.
You guys literally pick the worst people ever to exist to make them famous. And I'm actually not surprised that something went down in that Love Island reunion that they had in New York City. Leah, Serena, Janae, they're literally all mean girls. And watching the show made me realize how much more mature the men were in this season. The girls were literally taking up on all the drama, and it's literally the OGs.
I don't know any of the Love Island cast personally, so this is not a defense of anyone's character, but there is a very insidious brand of misogyny in that video, and we are gonna walk through it because it's a brand of misogyny that I see often, and so do you. Women's justified emotions or reactions being weaponized against them to paint them as crazy, hysterical, dramatic, or problematic. In that stitch, she says that the original Love Island girls were who caused the drama, whereas the men were much more mature. The framing of that is, the women were the problem, and the things they took issue with were invalid, hence referring to the concerns that they had as drama, and the men were the good guys because they were composed. which they weren't, but digressing. The men on Love Island, when the drama kicked off, were in, essentially, committed couplings. They then decided to step out on their committed couplings in very disrespectful ways. Some of them said very demeaning things about the women they were originally coupled with, and then went back to the villa and lied about all of it. Behavior that would upset anybody. Then, some of the women that the men brought back with them taunted the original girls, jeering and mocking the fact that they had taken their men. Again, behavior that would upset anybody. The original women of Love Island weren't causing drama or being problematic for reacting to being mistreated. The men on Love Island who were doing the mistreating weren't the good guys just because they were engaging in their mistreatment and bad behavior quietly. Thinking that men deserve calm reactions after treating women terribly is illogical, and attempting to villainize women for not reacting calmly to being mistreated is misogynistic. Something you should unpack. Why is it so easy for you to empathize and take the side of men who caused harm and were incredibly immature, amongst other things, whereas that same empathy is not offered to the women who were actually harmed and stood up for themselves? You should also remember that misogyny, unfortunately, is everywhere, especially in media. I wonder who gets the final say of how reality TV shows are edited, and who it's easiest to make look like the villain.
I have to talk about what is going on in Afghanistan right now because women just got another right taken away from them. The Talibs seized power 3 years ago, and ever since then they have created countless new laws, most of which are limiting women's access to anything and everything. But their newest law forbids women from using something that we all kind of take for granted, their voices in public, because they now deem that women's voices are considered too intimate to be heard out loud. So talking too loudly, reciting, reading out loud is not allowed in public. Women should not be seen or heard in public. That is basically the gist of it. The seen part they have already established, since every woman has to be covered up from top to bottom. Women should also not be allowed out without a male relative by their side. Like a little dog that's not allowed to go out without their owner, right? It's only that women even have less rights than dogs because dogs can bark without being punished. If a woman is too loud, she will be punished. Other things the Talibs have established in the last 3 years is that women are not allowed to go to university. Women get education until 6th grade, nothing beyond that. Most girls get married off at like 15, 16 because their families are in poverty. Women who are single mothers, who are widows, who are at risk because they don't have an active and successful male relative by their side who is able to provide for them, have to go to extreme and great dangerous lengths to make money. There are secret, beauty salons and stuff like that all around the country because women are not allowed to legally work in those places anymore. Women are not supposed to be treated by male doctors, but since, there's no education beyond 6th grade, they also can't become female doctors, meaning that women can basically not go to doctors. The education system and the healthcare system are suffering because a lot of women were nurses, doctors, teachers, and now all of them are not allowed to work anymore. So you do have extreme shortages. Women are forbidden from going to most public places, including parks and stuff like that. They're basically supposed to just be at home, get your education until 6th grade, and then get married and have babies and cook and clean. They're not allowed to have a voice, literally. And they have no human rights whatsoever. The self-unaliving rates have risen drastically. A lot of women and girls are trying to take their own lives because not being alive in their eyes is better than being a woman in Afghanistan. Whenever I think they took everything they could have possibly taken, they go a step further. They find another right to take away. It breaks my heart to see how progressive Afghanistan was before any type of foreign intervention, because that's also something I want to address. Because whenever I talk about Afghanistan, what is happening there, I will for whatever reason get comments, and a lot of the times Americans telling me, that's just the culture. That just happens when you're from a bad country. Completely ignoring the fact that the reason why the Talibs are so strong and so trained today is because of them and the CIA. For everybody that fell asleep during history, let me give you a quick rundown. There was a time when the Soviet Union basically tried to take over the entirety of Central Asia, Afghanistan included. As most of you guys know, the US and the Soviet Union always had some sort of beef going on. Basically, a bunch of old men in the governments trying to see who has the bigger peepee. So the US tried to, free Afghanistan from the Soviet Union. And as a concept, that sounds amazing because Afghanistan wanted to be independent. They did not want to be bothered by anybody. But the way the US, the best country in the world, did it is absolutely pathetic and embarrassing. They funded and trained an extremist militia group, the so-called Mujahideen, who before the US basically had no power whatsoever. This happened during Operation Cyclone. Look it up if you want. So they gave all the money to a group that they knew were unstable, were full of extremists, extremists and who wanted to gain power themselves. The Mujahideen became stronger and stronger due to the help of the US. And after some time, they split into multiple groups. Some of them were good groups, but one of those groups were the Talibs. So yes, the US is directly responsible for the state of Afghanistan today. So I do not want you in my comments telling me, oh, it's just their culture, it's just the way they are, it's Islam. When your government has facilitated the uprising of a terror organization because they were too lazy to find any other way to get rid of the Soviet Union. That is what it comes down to. They could not give less of an F what happens to the country that they leave behind once the Soviets are gone. Because for them, it was not about protecting Afghanistan from the potential threats that could occur when the Soviet Union takes over. It was simply about one-upping the Soviet Union and showing that their pee-pee is way bigger than their pee-pee. That is something governments like that have done again and again. They play their little games in different countries all over the world and only leave destruction behind. And then after doing all of that, that government does not teach its citizens actual history, so none of them know what their governments have actually done to the world. So then they are able to go into comment sections of Afghan women like me and tell me, oh, our, military tried for multiple years and we failed because you guys are just, so demented and so bad. We don't owe you anything. Your government actually owes most of the world everything. And by the way, if you were thinking about, oh, a government training a group to get rid of another group, and then that group becoming an extremist group, and then the government complaining about that, kind of reminds me of Hamas and Izzy. Yeah, it definitely does. They learn from their daddies from the US. Many people in Afghanistan, and specifically Afghan women, feel like they are not being heard anymore. Nobody cares about them anymore outside of the borders of Afghanistan. But that could not be further from the truth. So we will continue to talk to make sure that their stories are being heard, even though they're being legally silent.
The thing I hated most about movies growing up is that the way that mean girls are portrayed is almost never accurate. These are the type of mean girls you find in real life. First is the chill girl. The chill girl is just so chill and relaxed. If you're in a social situation, she'll be sure to point out how loud you're being, and you just need to chill out. She might consider herself a nerd or a tomboy, so she might make fun of you for enjoying makeup because she could never be into that sort of thing. The chill girl thinks because she's not into traditionally girly things, she can't be a mean girl. But the only qualification for being a mean girl is that you're mean. And newsflash, making a girl feel weird or superficial for liking the things that they like, that makes you a bit of a mean girl. Next is the nice girl. Nice girl is sugary sweet on the surface, but she says things that make you feel a little bit excluded or out of the ordinary. She'll come up to you and be super nice. Oh my god, babe, how are you doing? Are you coming tonight? Oh my god, wait, you weren't invited? I had no idea. Oh my god, I'm so sorry. I wouldn't have talked about it in front of you if I didn't know you were going. Ugh, we're gonna miss you so much though. Is she being nice because she's nice? Or is she acting nice because it makes her feel better? You'll notice in these interactions, you always leave feeling bad about yourself because they're being nice on the surface, but they're saying things that make you feel left out or excluded. Kind of similar, the next mean girl is the friend to all. The friend to all is super nice to everyone they meet. You'll meet this girl and she'll make you feel so special, but as soon as you turn your back, she's talking about you. You won't even know she's talking bad about you at first. You'll probably find out because you notice that she talks bad about everyone else around you. Like if you're in a conversation with her, if another girl comes up, she'll be super nice to that girl. And as soon as she turns her back, she'll turn to you and be like, oh my god, did you see what she was wearing? Like, what does she think she's doing? And you might think she's gossiping with you because she's really close with you and like she's a friend to you. But really, she just does that to everyone. She acts super nice and like she wants to be your best friend, but really, she's just fake. The next mean girl is the social climber. This girl will only be nice to you if she needs something from you. If you're in a group setting and she doesn't see any value from you, she will ignore you the whole time, never ask you a single question about yourself. She'll be on her phone, she'll roll her eyes, she'll basically act like she wants to be anywhere but with you. But as soon as you have something that they want, they are going to act like your bestest friend in the entire world. Honestly, it might work on you because before they were ignoring you. Now when they're giving you that positive attention, it does feel really good. But just know, as soon as you're not serving them anymore, they're going to drop you. The last mean girl to look out for is your fake friend. Now this mean girl is probably the hardest to spot because you don't think she's a mean girl since she's your friend. Probably the most obvious sign that your fake friend is a mean girl is that she's fueled by jealousy. They usually have a glass half empty attitude about anything in your life. Like you got a new boyfriend, maybe you're his rebound. Or wow, you got 90 on a test, but what was that 10% you got wrong? When something goes bad in your life, they're definitely going to be there for you, but it kind of feels like it's because they want to relish in your failures. You best believe when things start to turn around for you and your life is looking kind of great, they're going to put doubts in your mind and remind you of all the times things didn't go well for you. Hey, who needs enemies when you have a friend like that? I find most of the time, mean girls will not be mean to your face. And that's why it's so hard to spot them. But my biggest piece of advice is to trust your gut. If something somebody said is making you feel not great, there's probably a reason for that. Remember, it's better to have one real friend than 100 fake friends. Bye, guys.
Once you notice how they sexualize female cartoon animals, you won't be able to unnotice it. People have been talking about for animated movies, like anytime there's a male animal, it's just a regular animal, but anytime it's a female, they have boobs, eyelashes, and like a waist. And this is true for almost everything. Like take a look at male and female Stitch. Now, of course, we don't have a real animal to go off of here, but Stitch just looks pretty normal, like a stuffed toy. Female Stitch, however, I mean, of course she's pink, but also she has eyelashes. They're giving her a curve of the breast and like waist and a hip. They even have a little bit of like cleavage on her chest. And they do this for every movie. Like, you remember in Ice Age, there's Sid the Sloth and then the squirrel chasing the nut. Well, when they have the female versions, this sloth has fucking tits and eyelashes, and this squirrel is like arching its back with its booty, and then it also has boobs and eyelashes. This one really got me too, because you know what this look reminds me of? First of all, it's giving the look of when the female superhero on the poster needs to like show ass, but also tits, so she's like turning around to do it. But this look is so done for like four-legged female animal cartoons. Like they show you their ass and then they look around and they give you bedroom eyes. And I remembered this because obviously I was a horse girl growing up. So I was like obsessed with Spirit, Stallion of the Cimarron. And she was the queen of showing the ass and then looking back with the bedroom eye. You know, the same eyes that people joke about like Nala in The Lion King doing. Anyway, I was down this rabbit hole because we just did a Patreon episode all about furries. So I was looking into reasons why like animal cartoons, like they're animated to be sexy. Anyway, and a lot of people have different reasons, but they think that it could be because animation is really like a man's ball game. So those are the people who are animating it. Maybe that's why they make them all sexy or something. And then there were also interesting studies done where like the Walt Disney female characters are more like, I need to be saved, versus the Warner Brothers animated characters are usually a little bit more like sassy and sensual. Anyway, check out the episode if you want, but how effing crazy is this?